Barack Obama. And you say, well, what does Barack Obama have to do with New Orleans? Well, it's just interesting because when talking about schools, they were talking about discussing his particular victory in New Orleans. And some people decided that they wanted to ban the conversation about his political victory within the public schools. So there's some schools that are not even allowing them to have a conversation about his victory and what does that mean. And that, again, that makes me come back to the point that how different has America become since the 60s? I mean, the reality that we can't even in public schools have an open forum to discuss the victory of a president who just happens to be a black president in a southern state makes me wonder how far we really have come.
Yeah, that's kind of ludicrous because we're talking about history, and if we're talking about having youth informed about history, this is a monumental part of history. So if there are prejudices or biases that are preventing the information from, just general historical information from coming into the school system, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, the answer to the question is that this is a public safety issue based on the teacher decision that he thought there might be fights, things like that, and then some other schools decided that might be an issue, and so they decided that let's ban the conversation. But how close are we getting to, you know, when we start banning conversations, the next thing is we're banning books, you know, and then we're going after people. So we have to be very careful with that because the word free speech means something. It's protected underneath the Constitution, and I don't think it stops at the school door that we can, you know, the students can't within themselves discuss issues, especially one that important about a president being elected. If the whole world can discuss it as an issue, we as Americans should be able to do that.
Yeah, and what's equally ludicrous is the fact that if we can't get studies or information about the contributions of people of African descent into the history books now, we have a current event issue that now exists and we can't even get that discussed in the school system?
Yeah, well, again, and that's the question we're going to ask you, and you can respond to the website, or you can send me an email at producer@bmscable.com. Do you think that in certain states or whatever, I guess in New Orleans, are the teachers in the school systems right about keeping students from talking about the election because they want to keep peace in the schools? That's almost as ludicrous as them sitting underneath that tree where only white people can sit underneath, remember? Mm-hmm. Okay. And maybe, just maybe, again, we might find out in this country that we're not as enlightened as we think we are because we elected a black president. There's still a lot of people out there that have a problem with it.
And what is that based on? Have they had already enough incidents to make a generalization like that?
Well, from what I understand, my understanding about the situation is that the teachers that were involved in asking for that particular ban felt, because of the makeup of the classroom and things of that nature, the tension that he felt would have caused, that it was a personal call. And then some of the schools decided to go along with that. So I would like to know the makeup of the schools, to be honest with you, to see why it was such a public safety issue. Yeah,
but you know, the reason and I know you know the answer, but the reason I'm pointing out how ludicrous it is because you have history, European history taught in predominantly black schools, and no one says, okay, there's going to be a mob or a riot or violence. So what does that say? What does that say about the individuals you're referring to, where they can't take general historical information just because it's not from their cultural background?
I mean, it speaks to a level of maturity, and it speaks to a level of ignorance that we should be combating. We shouldn't be comforting ignorance. We should be fighting against it. And I think that when we don't discuss issues that make people uncomfortable, then we're protecting ignorance. And especially in a place where learning should be taking place, I think is the most ridiculous thing I've heard in a long time.